Well, the ANC's National Executive Committee is calling on South Africans to rally behind the calls for a state of disaster declaration in response to the electricity crisis. Secretary General Fikile Mbalula reiterated President Ramaphosa's comments made last night that the power cuts must come to an end by December.
The National Chairperson, in his capacity as Minister of Mineral and Energy, also made an important presentation in terms of our interventions. This plan will be bolstered by lessons drawn by the Lekgotla from the Energy Dialogue, presentations from technical experts and communities, as well as international best practices from India and Germany, among others. Lekgotla also called for the acceleration of the plans of the committee such that there is no load shedding by the end of the year.
Let's talk more about the energy crisis. We're joined by Accountability Now Director Advocate Paul Hoffman to talk about the ANC's intention to push for a state of disaster declaration in response to the power crisis. A very good evening to you, Advocate. Thank you for your time. So constitutionally, can the ANC government pull this off?
It's going to be an interesting one, Tembakili. Thank you for the opportunity and good evening to your viewers. What I see in this is a piece of legislation that was actually designed to deal with events like droughts, floods, and fires, being molded to deal with a failure of service delivery on the part of Eskom and on the part of the government that is the only shareholder in Eskom. And so I went and looked at the act when your producer called me, and I found a provision in it that probably had a few eyes lighting up in Luthuli House and at Megawatt Park. At least something lights up in our dire electricity shortage. There is a provision there that says that anything done in good faith during a state of disaster by the COGTA minister right down to a fairly low-level civil servants, it carries an indemnity with it, provided it was done in good faith. So I'm not sure that this is not just a stratagem to block off those who wish to litigate and to head off the posse of lawyers that are gathering with a view to holding the state to its obligation under the Bill of Rights to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the human rights of everybody in this country. And if you start with inherent human dignity and you move on to life, because you lose your life when the electrically operated life support systems fall flat during load shedding, through to bodily and psychological integrity, the right to food, the right to an environment that is not harmful to health and well-being, the right to work. All of these are rights guaranteed in the Constitution, rights that the state is obliged to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill, and they are the sort of rights that the wannabe litigants are relying on in seeking to get relief from the courts that relates to the failure of government to so organize service delivery that the lights stay on, that the electricity supply is reliable, that the Eskom organization is capable of getting the right amount of coal into the boilers, the right amount of diesel into the generators, the right amount of repairs done.
Right.
And that is what the issues are going to be about in any list.
And just on that point, Advocate Hoffman, I mean, when you look at the state of disaster declaration and how it's been used in the past, it was largely in response to circumstances which were mainly unforeseen, right? I.e. the floods in KwaZulu-Natal last Easter, the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, when you look at load shedding, it has been a slow build-up to this moment where we've got more frequent higher stages of power cuts, right? Can it be argued then that on that basis, it may not legally necessarily fit the emergency declaration aspect, basically?
Yes, no, that is an arguable point. I think a disaster is a disaster, and it is probably going to impress a court that is seized with the question of whether it's appropriate to declare a state of disaster in relation to Eskom. That so far, and the bells have been ringing, the warning bells have been ringing since 1997, the government has not assembled the wit, the means, the expertise to deal with the shortage of electricity, to deal with the breakdowns in supply, to deal with the inability to generate and transmit, even to collect payment from errant municipalities and non-paying Eskom direct customers. All of those things reek of maladministration as the cause of the current bind. Not a disaster at all, but a man-made problem.
So as far as the urgency of the moment, which would also then play into this declaration, does the fact that we're seeing in real time damage to the economy, massive job losses in various industries as a result of the escalation in the power cuts, as well as warnings about potential increases in crime and threats to the country's security as a result of the crisis, would that be sufficient grounds to say now is the time to do it?
Yes, well, it depends on the motive that is actuating those who want to do it. If it is just a time-buying exercise, and it can be shown to be such, then it's not appropriate to have a state of disaster declared. But if there are genuine plans to address the shortage of electricity, the inability to fill the generators' fuel tanks with diesel, I mean, that's just a question of buying some diesel, but there's apparently no money for diesel, so the generators that could help with emergency supplies simply stand idle for want of the fuel that is needed to make them operational. And there are similar stories in relation to sabotage, theft of cables, shenanigans in relation to the supply of coal, the quality of the coal, the amount of stone in the coal. We read now about the Hitachi Power Africa deal being tainted by corruption and used as a fundraising exercise for the ANC. All of those sorts of things will go into the scales of justice on the side of those who will say, we don't want a state of disaster. What we want is clean, proper governance that can give us the electricity supply that the state is obliged to
Could we not also argue, Advocate Paul Hoffman, that this may in part be driven by politically expedient reasons for the ANC, because load shedding has long had an impact on people's ability to run their lives properly, run their businesses. Many communities have been victims of crime when there is an outage that lasts 2 to 4 hours. So you have to wonder, why take this decision now in a year and a half to a general election?
Yes, well, I think that the answer comes with the fear of losing office, because the situation in relation to electricity supply is so bad. At Davos, the Minister of Finance said, we'll have it all sorted out within 2 years. Now I hear the new Secretary General of the ANC in the insert just before this interview saying that he thinks he can do it within a year. All of this is political posturing that is aimed to shore up the shrinking support that the governing alliance has enjoyed since 1994. And the signs, the market research, the polls that have been taken seem to suggest that the support, the voter support of the alliance is going south at quite a rapid rate. And that being so, you can hardly ignore experts from the CSIR who say that it's going to take 10 years to get back on an even keel with the supply of electricity, and listen to politicians who have one eye on the election coming up in 2024.
Advocate Paul Hoffman, good to speak to you as always. Thank you for your time.